Hey, welcome to the Foster Fathers Podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Kyle.
And this is a podcast all about foster care, adoption, and fatherhood.
We hope that you feel welcome. We hope that you feel that you belong. And we're glad that you're here to share this time with us.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Foster Fathers Podcast.
You were really ready for that.
Dude, I've been gearing up for this. I've been gearing up for this.
He's been gone for a week.
Yeah, I took vacation, so I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, so, dude,
what are we talking about today?
I don't know whose turn it is. Today we're talking about the interacting with the state system.
Okay.
And that's like a 101. We have opinions on that potentially, and mostly positive.
This is just an overview.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to get opinions. We're not trying to get feelings.
Yeah.
Not trying to make anybody feel bad.
Yeah. I think to put a pin in that little antidote is to say they are great people trying to do a good thing.
I feel bad.
That's hard.
Yeah. I feel bad for a lot of these people. I understand the emotional whiplash that I'm experiencing.
And then they have a 10-15 caseload.
And you're doing
15 of you.
You're doing that 55 hours a week, dude. And not everybody's as great as me.
Yeah. Oof. But we have This Week in Foster Care.
This Week in Foster Care. Yeah, I think you got
Is
one?
it me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just bleed in from the last episode where we did that real talk, or I don't know what we're calling it, but we're doing that like just real life look. And for me, this week in foster. Well, I had a burp there. This Week in Foster Care and Adoption.
You can't cut that out.
No, I guess
they need to know that we're real people.
We are real.
We burp.
I do burp.
I'm not a robot. I have bodily functions. Just ask my kids. It's the biggest topic of our mealtime. Every mealtime.
That's funny. This Week in Foster Care is overwhelming. And, I think that's like that's just kind of where our family's at, our house, and we have had some sickness, some physical stuff going on, and all the kids, and then us. I got hit, and Tracy got hit, and with a sickness, and then just to clarify,
by a car?
No,
what? No.
But then it's just there's a lot going on, and then not only that, we have the complications of mom's out, and we got to figure out how to dance that dance, and do our
feel.
Yeah, what do we feel? What want to happen? What are all the other things? So it's just overwhelming.
Can I ask you a question just to open up? Are you used to 4 kids yet?
No. There are moments in which like you hitch them all up and you go to the park and you have fun, and you have those cool moments with each one of the kids, and you realize like, all right, this is, I think arguably when like we talk about in our house, like when the baby is like 3, the youngest is 3 or 4. There's a whole slew of other things going on. I'm very much aware and sure. I've asked other parents, but that feels a little bit easier. It's easier to get out of the house when you don't have to get everything for a baby. It's easier to sleep all night.
You don't have to pack a bag.
Yeah, it's all this stuff. So,
no. How what's the word I'm looking for? Not sufficient. What's the word I'm looking for? Help me out. So,
self-sufficient?
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say on a scale of 1 to 10. No, on a scale of 0 to 100%. How do you feel? I mean, we're 75% there. We're 80% there.
As far as what?
Competency of managing 4 kids.
I don't know.
50%.
C's get degrees, dude. That's what I said.
That's perfect.
That's how I get to college.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean,
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But
I think you try to be more than you. I know I try to be more, and then I realize what it actually takes.
Yeah, I think more importantly, I don't know, in parenting, I suppose, it's just more of like just being open-handed to learn and to take advice. We live next to neighbors. They've had only 1 kid, and that's great. They've raised an adult kid. Like, that's the wisdom I'd like to learn from.
Yeah.
We have other families that have really great, strong relationships with their adult children, and they have 4 of them. How'd you do that? I'd love to know how you did that. We have.
How did you make it from 0 to 5? You know, what I mean, I know how you can do it with adult kids. That seems easy. But how did you get from 0 to 5 years old?
Yeah. So just the openness. I think at least in my perspective, the way I operate as myself. My wife maybe would be different, but I'm asking questions to people all the time.
Yeah.
How did you do this? We have friends with 4 kids, probably 3 years ahead of us, And we had In and Out with them, all 8 of our kids and 4 adults one night.
Squeezed in.
And they're like, we didn't do this.
Yeah.
when our youngest was a baby. We didn't go out. Like, if you want to hang out, you're coming over.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe we should clean our house enough to have that happen because we have 4 kids. Yeah. But then also, like, it's, just learn.
We have a few friends anymore. It's okay. Hey, it's just an assumption. Yeah. We're having it at our house because bedtime's going to roll around and we're still going to want to be hanging out. So, okay, let's make a transition. Awkward transition number 1. Shifting gears.
Yeah, that was stupid. I learned how to shift a gear in your car.
That's right. That was actually about a year ago. We went on a ski trip.
Yeah.
And Chris learned how to. Oh yeah, Chris learned how to drive a manual transmission.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So today we want to talk literally about just kind of what to expect when getting into foster care, but then also who are all these people? That's what we should call this episode. Because I remember
the who's who of foster care.
Yeah,
there we go.
There you go. That's perfect.
Who's who of foster care.
Literally, like when I remember getting licensed, getting a placement, moving into adoption, blah blah blah. I could not keep all these people straight, specifically in the early part. And so we want to be resourced. We want to be helpful. And so,
what should you expect? So who's first? Who's first?
I mean, obviously, I think the very first thing, you hop online, you just register for classes. Someone's probably going to email you back a packet. You fill out the packet and say, I would like to explore foster care.
Right.
And then you move into a class. Let's start there. You have a teacher. That should be pretty self-explanatory. We also have co-trainers. My wife just became one of those.
Yeah.
Sitting in on classes, giving firsthand advice, perspectives, all that stuff. And
she's perfect for that.
Yeah, she's great. And so that feels pretty self-explanatory. But
Jessica says, how does Tracy do it? I couldn't do that. How does Tracy do that?
Your wife a doctor, pretty much?
I mean, I think she's very high functioning, but very, very high functioning. But that's exactly. I mean, just out of her mouth. Hey, how does Tracy do that?
I would literally look at Jessica and be like, how person didn't die?
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah. It's great.
It's amazing.
It's great.
So then you have a licensing worker.
She hasn't killed me yet, so we're doing something.
She's tried, maybe.
Okay, let's reel it back in. I feel like I'm getting off course. Okay, so you get your trainers, get your trainer, and then you get through all your coursework.
Yep.
And then what happens?
Licensing worker.
What does a licensing worker do?
You tell me, sir.
Well, so here's the interesting thing is that our first licensing worker actually became, there was a gap in, I don't fully know how this worked, but there was a gap in personnel. So she somehow was connected to a case that actually hadn't even fully. Our first one, a little girl was still living with her aunt and uncle, and they were coming to a point where they said, we can't continue on with this. So before we were even licensed, we started this conversation. So the licensing kind of got fast tracked. Expedited.
Well, then maybe I should talk about this one.
Yeah. But, so the licensing worker kind of tabulates all the, puts together all your final documents and then comes and does the home study.
Yeah.
And you talked about this before we got on. The home studies are kind of scary. It feels scary. Yeah, it's not actually scary, but it feels scary.
I would say, and I have encouraged and told people, the home study on paper looks way scarier than the home study in person.
Yeah.
And I think
feels like it. Well, we did a 2-part. Did you do a 2-part?
Yeah.
We did an interview and then the actual in-home study. Okay.
We just happened to have our interview at our home. So that was felt like 2.
Well, ours was still kind of coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
So nobody did anything in the house unless you had to.
Yeah, we licensing worker helps you compile all that stuff. She often is the same person. Ours was a fresh one. Like, I think we were her first case. She had a supervisor with her doing it, so it was kind of fun. Like, we were like, did she do good? Yeah, okay, good. She was great. She was cool. And so, yeah, they ask questions and they sit across the table from you, just kind of hopefully like you feel here and like, why are you doing this? Here's the reality, in my opinion, to paint some context here. I think a lot of these people obviously they're doing their due diligence to weed out any cuckoos or whatever. But at the same time,
sometimes not enough cuckoos get weeded out.
Well, the training oftentimes, at least in our state, Idaho, weeds out a lot of cuckoos just because of the intensity of it. But then also they're sitting across the table asking some pretty hard and direct questions, like even things down to like, how much do you make? How much is in savings? Stuff like that. And so like just, can you financially and responsibly do this?
Yeah.
Those are great questions. Stuff like that. So that's what a licensing worker does. Does the home study, which is walking through the house. I think we needed like a fire extinguisher. We needed a CO2 thing in one of the bedrooms. We had missed that. So she's like, not a big deal. Did
they test your water temperature? Do you remember that?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
We had to turn our water temperature down.
Whoa.
It was too hot. The thermometer in the water in the bathroom, and you got to turn this thing down. It's about 4 degrees too high. All right. I mean,
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I passed. I keep my temperatures correct.
Yeah. You got that thing dialed in.
Yeah. So then you get passed on, and assuming you get licensed and you get approved, then you move into what I believe is your caseworker, right? Well, then you also get an RPM.
Yeah. Let me check back real quick. So initially we live in a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah.
Massive 2-bedroom house. No. 2-bedroom house.
What is it? 1,300 square feet?
1,000 square feet.
What?
2-bedroom house. And in all the training that we're doing, all of it was called Pride initially. I think now it's called First.
Yeah.
And it's the training session. Got a friend going through it right now. And it just helps set the tone of what you should expect, what's going to come on, gets you some thought-provoking, pieces, get you prepared. As you really get the preparedness starting. We've talked about this, and I think everyone's, that's just, we can't say it enough. You won't quite be fully prepared. You can just be hopeful that you can learn on the fly.
Yeah.
But anyways, where was I going?
I have no idea.
Where was I going? Oh yes, there we go. Sorry, I'm back. So
we are real people.
During our all of our Pride, our initial training, they say, hey, 2 kids per bedroom, 2 kids per bedroom, 2 kids per bedroom, 2 kids per bedroom.
Yeah.
And then we're finishing up our first of the 2, in licensing visits, home study visit. And she says, okay, so we're approving you for 4 kids. And we chuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we chuckle. Wait, what?
We use one of those bedrooms.
Yeah. And I was we only have a 2-bedroom house. And she says, oh, yeah, but with the current demand, we're making some variances.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're well aware of what a variance is now that we have 4 kids living in 1 bedroom. That they'll make it anything work. But it's funny, it just shifted. So the home study was initially, to confirm, is this a livable space? That's done by your licensing worker. Sure. The licensing worker then passes you on. Then it goes from licensing worker to a placement.
Yeah.
The placement team, placement worker.
Well, yeah, you kind of live in that limbo space. You get your license. Yep. Oftentimes that limbo, depending on the demand. In our case, it hasn't been a lot. I have friends that just got out of training. They're like, we haven't heard anything in like 3 days. I was like, it's been 3 days.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
You'll get 6 messages on the 4th day. Don't worry.
You get in this weird limbo stage where you have let's just talk about RPMs real quick.
Okay.
At least in our state, you get an RPM, a resource peer mentor.
Yeah. And you're starting that.
I'm having an initial coffee with one of those staff members to see
if
I'm interested in what
Will you be my RPM?
No, I would decline.
Dang it.
They're just mentors. They're people a little bit ahead of you that like this podcast. I hope you feel this. We are not experts. We just have a little bit more time on some people and a lot less time on most.
Just kind of know what the questions are to ask.
Yeah.
Have some resources, know some questions to ask to help them process through, and then have a couple solutions.
Then also just someone to lean on.
Yeah.
The first time, And so that RPM hopefully reaches out to you in the next few days. They kind of divvy up the recent graduates, if you will. And, that's a person that hopefully you lean on. They should be with you for a long time. At least let you know when someone changes. So there's an RPM. That's a mentor, someone you should lean on. But then when a case comes to light, you get a licensing worker. Or sorry, oh my gosh, you get a caseworker.
Caseworker.
So tell us about your experience with the caseworker.
So actually, our licensing worker, like I was saying, became our caseworker.
Oh yeah,
she stepped in as a caseworker.
Since you got the top dog, I think
that was the first. I mean, that was our first one. So we had our second situation. So then, that was our first one. So that lady was our caseworker. She checks in once a month at minimum. Yeah. I mean, she was present when we were doing parental visits with their little girl's mom. She was there for most of those, at least especially initially, until mom started checking boxes, hitting quotas, that type of thing, and then she started, it was a little bit more space, once the trust was built or reestablished, and then our second caseworker came in, and she showed up. Well, she was on the phone within just a couple days. That one happened really quick. We had a temporary worker for the first meeting with Grandpa and the older two, and then the second meeting was I'll just call her Kay, sure, as initial. Kay showed up and was, helping us file paperwork, get the kids into daycare.
Just rocking it.
Yeah, really fairly young, but really dialed into what needed to be done. I'm really involved. Cool. Answered a ton of my questions, willing to take phone calls often, as I processed through
what's happening.
Yeah. So that was the caseworker there.
I think it's fairly obvious, hopefully, but this person is assigned to the case. Kids, and often you will interact with that person a lot because you have their case.
Yeah.
And they often have other cases. They often have other kids in the picture. And if that kid moves on to a different place, that person will go with the kid.
So just a quick refresh for our lovely listeners out there.
Yeah.
So you have a little girl and then her half brother.
Yep.
Same caseworker for those two?
We do. Yep.
Okay.
And that, I guess, could be
So the caseworker almost follows the parent, not the kid. Is that right?
Touche, yeah.
I don't know if I don't know that.
I think one and the same, right? The parent came from the kid.
Kid came from the parent.
Oh yeah. See, real people.
That's how it happens.
How does it happen?
Let me
in specifics, please. Yeah. So you have a caseworker, you have an RPM, and in our situation, let's take this to the next level. Move quickly. Yeah. Before we have sex ed here on the podcast, that caseworker will generally pass you off. They are a foster care worker in our situation, and they are
foster care.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they take this to the idea of permanency. So whether that means reunification, whether that means adoption, whether that means whatever, their case, their end of their road is the permanency. So I remember
when does it switch to permanency?
Whenever the judge or the case plan, they've come to a final solution. And so in our situation, before we had surprise little guy, we had a direct meeting that we knew this was the last time that we would be with our caseworker. And then, it was a sweet moment. I mean, I told her, like, hey, in a weird way, you really helped us get one of the best gifts we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
And so
did you cry?
As much as I can cry.
You thought about it. Like, this would be the time I would.
This would be a moment.
This would be a moment normal people would cry.
Yeah.
And you didn't.
My wife did.
Yeah. Good.
If my wife's crying, then I'm realizing it would be normal.
Yeah, that's when you know you're out of touch with your emotion. No, I'm just teasing. I'm sorry. Too far.
Yeah, maybe. I don't quite remember the Titans, though. I was kidding. That's so good, dude.
Oh, dude. How can you not?
I know, that's a good point. But also within that, there's guardian ad litem.
Yeah, so let me differentiate here. Yeah. Everyone else up until this point is a part of the state system.
Yep.
Guardian ad litem is part of the court system, but not an employee. Everyone else is on one level or another an employee or a resource that is supported financially by the state.
Yep.
A guardian ad litem. I think California calls them casas. A lot of court advocate is the way that I sum it up. That our dudes have been. Those guys are like Sherlock
Our chicks
Holmes.
have been awesome.
Yeah, I've had
ladies,
and I've had two older guys, and they're just so sweet. Oh, just so sweet, dude. I mean, it's fun. It's really fun. They're like the Sherlock Holmes. They're asking a ton of questions. They're figuring everything out.
And they again, this informational. They are on behalf of the child itself, him or herself. They just want to make sure the well-being. So they're kind of like that third Switzerland, that third-party Switzerland type place.
Good way of
they don't really care about what the caseworker thinks. They don't really. I mean, they do, but fundamentally, brass tacks.
Yeah,
it's about the kid. Is the kid best here, in my opinion, or not? Because they have training and they have all that stuff. But yeah,
the state's goal is reunification. And
sometimes, and not to put it negatively, but maybe arguably blindly, or
it's innocent until proven guilty. It's reunification until significant evidence otherwise. Is kind of
is what it is.
Yeah, that is what it is. And there's a lot of justification for that. I mean, clearly it's there's nuances that can really derail that. Yeah. But you have to give a fair chance, and we can talk more about that later because that's a whole topic in itself.
Sure.
But the guardian ad litem is third party. Yep. And it's tough. I mean, you and I, when we talked about that this tonight, with the situation you're encountering, the situations that I've encountered, even one, we still have some interaction with one of our former foster daughters and her mom, and just some of the feelings there. It's the ambiguity is hard. It's hard to know how to handle it. So I have there's a lot of agendas out there. Yeah. The guardian ad litem is trying to look at everything from a overview of what's safe, what's truly best, even in account of reunification. What is truly the best, safest outcome for this child.
And then this person, guardian ad litem, writes a case or writes a write-up for the judge. Yeah. I've said that before. And so that they are awesome. They're also in your corner in a lot of ways. And at least in our experience, ours has been really positive with us. I don't want to paint this person as they are very independent and they don't care about anybody else. It's just what they think. Well, part of them figuring out what they think is talking to you, talking to parents, talking to social workers, caseworker, social worker.
I mean, they're working on behalf of that child, and what I will say is the guys that we worked with, one of them in particular, he had a case that was similar to ours, and I mean, he was giving me advice. I would go to him for coaching. He's seen people in foster and adoptive situations before us. And so I would ask him questions. Hey, what have you seen before? And I mean, he had to give both these guys had to give ambiguous answers sometimes. I've seen both ways. I've seen like you were talking about asking, what are my outcomes? What can I prepare for? What can I expect? You can expect to be surprised because last time I went this way, this other time. But there was a couple things that he came to me actually for advice to say, hey, so they're experiencing this, but I know that you found, a loop around for, daycare. You found this loop for, something you and I were talking about tonight is diapers. Dude, diapers are getting expensive. Hey, take a pic. The easiest way is to take a picture, send it to your and so he was actually trying to support these other foster parents, not for their sake. He was trying to find support for these other foster parents for the child's sake. So it really, I think that their perspective is this kid is the utmost priority, and how do we keep this kid healthy and safe? Yeah,
and I should say that for some people, foster care, that is their sweet spot. And that's amazing. And I've met people that have never had the opportunity to move to a permanency situation.
Yeah.
And so that
I didn't expect to be here as soon as I did.
Yeah. Well, that could be the end of the road if you are a foster parent. That's literally in the foster care world. Like you're just taking in cases, giving safe refuge for kids, and moving them on and moving them home, and that's admirable. And we love
thank
that.
you.
Yeah, seriously, thank you. Legit. But in some situations, and it happened to be both of our situations, it was found necessary by everyone that permanency needed to be the solution. That mom, dad couldn't handle it and couldn't provide a safe living for these kids, so we moved into, then passed on another person to our permanency worker, and then that person, and you're freshly in that.
Yeah.
You're currently in it.
Yeah. That was an odd transition. I was like, so wait, what? How does it? What do you do? Oh, you do the same thing she does, but you don't. Yeah, it was confusing.
And I will say, well, here comes the paperwork again.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had that, and we had a couple month timeline. We had already met the 6-month in-home requirement, well past that, and so then we had to then start. She got us set up. She had the monthly check-ins just like the caseworker did, but then also she got us to the court day, and then so that was awesome. That was a pretty short couple month process with her, because once the judge has deemed this is the course, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And the state is...
there's not a lot of change in that.
The state kind of wants to kind of button this up, and not in a mean way, but just like, okay, hey, we love you, but there's other kids. So I will say this, it was cool, at least on my side. I don't know how it will be for yours. Almost everyone along our chain came to our adoption.
Yeah.
And it's like a cool, like I even talked to our caseworker, because she doesn't have to be there. She's like, oh, these are the moments that remind me
this is what I'm doing.
And so it's kind of cool. You had this whole chain of people. Although for me, I was like, wait, who was I supposed to talk to you about what? Who does what here? Like, and that's crazy overwhelming if you're walking into this place.
Yeah.
And you're about to meet 6 different people doing 6 different things and calling you. And that's not even the support that you can receive, and some of the state workers that help with that. That's not even potentially, if you're interested in a WIC, you have a WIC worker. If you're who need diapers, you have a diaper person.
Yeah, and it can get so overwhelming, I think, sometimes, especially, I remember when our guardian ad litem first called me, and he starts asking me these questions, and I was
like, wait, who are you?
Dude, I mean, he was grilling me. It felt like he was grilling me.
The first time I talked to the guardian ad litem for the little guy we have, I was on the phone with her for 90 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just like, dude, can I call you back when I'm not driving? When I can actually answer your questions.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize who he was. Yeah. So that's a huge one, is that realize that there's going to be, and you got your placement worker, RPMs or the early set, licensing worker, placement worker, RPM, then it's going to be your case worker, guardian ad litem, and then permanency worker.
Well, and then there's, like in our situation, there's judge. All the support systems on the side. Do you need therapy? Do you that, like, at least our state has a pretty robust support system, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so there's, we had a caseworker come out, or a different worker, I don't even know what to call this one, to assess our kids.
Yeah.
Like what do they need? Hey, based on my assessment, we need to go down this path with counseling, or honestly, in our situation,
early childhood development. I was talking about that.
Another person. And then, like, there's just so many people.
Yeah. So I think some of it is you just have to, and two caseworkers are the same. Our first caseworker to our second caseworker, they operate differently. Mm-hmm. So it is your prerogative, your prerogative to ask those questions and figure out, our 2 guardian ad litems, both helpful, uniquely different.
Yeah.
So you just gotta. It is somewhat on you, because I tell you, I mean, if you push against it or get frustrated by it, it's just gonna make things even more frustrating.
Yeah.
So learning who you're working with, learning how they operate, is going to be huge.
Yeah.
Is going to be huge. Have you, just to I know some people who talk about foster care not quite being their thing, but adoption. Have you met anyone who's done direct adoption? So I know that they asked us, hey, is your goal foster, or is your goal adoption? And we said foster with adoption as a plan B, or as a secondary outcome. Did you know anybody who went in to the state system with foster care or with adoption as their primary? Because I know you know other people who have adopted.
I think we
directly, but with different.
This week.
Yeah,
it's going to be pretty cool. I think the state has a way of pointing them in the right direction. There are third party, like we have what's it called, adoption agency, obviously.
Yeah,
that uses state. It's also then there are cases. I'm assuming, I don't know fully. I don't want to speak like an expert because I'm not one.
Yeah.
But there are situations in which mom is pregnant, is going to give the kid away for adoption to the state, and then the state has to. That kid doesn't enter foster care, right? That kid is, enters adoption.
So we got to find some resources on that.
Yeah,
our people need that.
Yeah, our people. You're our people, dog.
There we go.
Yeah. So I guess I want to, in summary, to close this episode.
Yeah, dude, close it up.
Hear this. At least in our experiences, I don't want to speak fully for you, but I just happen to know. You're going to be inundated and meet with a ton of people who have the best intentions in mind.
Yeah.
I think, and we could talk about this in a different episode. We want to talk about it, that we tend to think that the state is against you. The state is against, this and that, and and there are imperfect things that happen in an imperfect system with imperfect people involved. Like, that's reality. That's life.
Yeah.
But in our experience, even when things have been awkward or weird or even a little tough to swallow, it has been a well-intentioned person on the other side. And so please hear that. If that comes with any encouragement to anyone listening, you're going to walk into some madness.
And to go back to our first 72 hours, realize there's going to be a lot of phone calls early on, and it is going to feel like just a total affront. People are asking questions. You're settling in, and they have to check their boxes. They have to dot their I's, cross their T's, and you're going to be like, I'm trying to manage, 2 kids right now. Dude, quit calling me, you bear with it, get through it. It does settle in. It still feels like a lot of appointments at times, but as a whole, compared to the first 2 months, where we're at now, it's rhythm. It's totally a rhythm. Great word. So,
all right, hey, love you guys. Keep going. That's the word.
We're here for you.
Yeah. All right, peace.